Identity is fundamental to our existence. Our reality is influenced by our awareness of our identity. In the words of Marcus Garvey, a people without knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without its roots. When a person knows his or her identity, combined with the power of their mind, they're able to create their reality and lay out their life as they see fit. From the moment we are born, we are influenced by outside influences. Your mother, father, family, friends, and society all shape you into who you perceive yourself to be. You must understand that your mother, father, family, friends, and everyone in society were programmed and influenced to be who they are before passing that same influence onto you. It is a scientific fact that the minds of children from the ages of 1 through 7 are wired to receive information from their outside world. This is how they learn and integrate into society. This is called theta brain activity. So how does this affect you? Well, based on how you grew up, the family environment you grew up in, where you grew up, and the period in which you grew up, you develop your identity based on those outside influences. For example, in the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, written by Robert T. Kiyosaki, it illustrates how the environment impacts a person's identity. We learned that if you grew up in an environment where the family was rich and their actions and behaviors surrounded success, wealth, and abundance, that influence is also going to be on you, and your lifestyle is going to follow suit. Now, if you grew up in an environment where the family outlook on life was on struggle, lack, and misfortune, then that influence will also be on you, and you will identify with life as hard, and that becomes woven into your identity. Though this is typical, there are exceptions. There was a cartoon where a dog grew up with a pack of wolves and ended up believing it was a wolf, and a wolf who grew up with dogs and ended up believing it was a dog. Just like in the movie Mowgli, a young boy grew up with a pack of wolves and ended up believing and identifying himself as a wolf. These are just a few examples of how society, our family, and friends mold our identity. There are many societal influences that shape and mold a person's identity, but there are 5 major influences we will discuss in our segments on identity. The first is religion. Religion has a significant impact on identity. The religion we grew up with and identify with impacts the way that we are. Approximately 5.8 billion of the 7.9 billion of the world's population fall into a religious group. Religion being the biggest societal influence on our identity, it affects our conscious thinking, subconscious way of being, and all areas of our daily lives. A person receives information from the outside world and processes it through the lens of his or her religion. If our identity is sown in a hidden undertone of fear and unworthiness, then that same behavior will carry out in our daily lives, how we react in our relationships, how we treat our children, and how we are in our work environments and in society. While most churches advertise doing the right thing and promote God's love, a vast majority teaches you that you are a wrongdoer and unworthy of God's love. This plays into how we see ourselves and view our identity. In the Black community, this type of message has caused the Black church to inadvertently send a repeated message of unworthiness to millions of its Black members. This plays into the subconscious mind, leading to an identity rooted in never being good enough. For we all have become like one who is unclean, and all our deeds of righteousness are like filthy rags. Isaiah 64:6. Indeed, I am completely unworthy. Job 40:4. This message of fear and unworthiness has an earlier beginning. As documented in history, white pro-slavery Christians in the 1800s used religion to justify the institution of slavery. They perpetuated the belief that Africans were cursed children and descendants of Ham, and the whites were the chosen ones. And as the chosen ones, they believed they had a God-given right to enslave the African people and be their caretakers. Pro-slavery Christians used religion to establish beliefs of inferiority and wretchedness of African people and to justify their actions. Any practices of African religion and culture was considered wretched and idol worship. This way of thinking would later seep into media, politics, and society. White pro-slavery Christians would enforce Christianity as a means of establishing discipline onto black slaves. The slave masters would often post images of white Jesus and a white Mary to further enforce the idea of white supremacy, thus a black inferiority. Pro-slavery whites would mediate black congregations and preach the word of God and repeat quotes as, "Slaves, obey your earthly masters." These repeated scriptures and beliefs seep into the subconscious mind of not only blacks, but whites. The identity of blacks is set as inferior and wretched, and whites, the chosen ones, a profound effect on the identity of future generations. Hopefully by now you understand how the societal influence of religion impacts how we see ourselves, how others see us, how we feel about ourselves, and how we interact with one another in our daily lives. We have the power to change religious influences on ourselves by becoming aware of the hidden undertones. Your reality can be shifted with a change in your mind power, will, and belief in self. In the Kybalion and the universal laws, it teaches that the mind is all. Ancient manuscripts that preceded the Bible, like the Tao, Hermetic, and Kybalion texts, reveal to us that everything in life goes back to the self and the control of the mind. Mastering others is strength, but mastering yourself is true power, the Tao. An understanding of the Hermetic principle of mentalism enables the individual to readily grasp the laws of the mental universe and to apply the same to his well-being and advancement, the Kybalion. You are the master of your life. The self can keep you locked into inherited or learned behaviors, which can then positively or negatively shape your identity. However, you can begin to free yourself from these religious societal identity constructs that were placed on you. The first step is to become aware of its societal indoctrination and remove the fear of taking that leap of faith that you will not be punished and burn in hell to learn and discover outside your religious teachings. According to James and Peter, save yourselves from this corrupt generation and know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. What does this truth mean? The truth means you have the freedom to dive deep and learn about your reality. You have control over your destiny with the power of your mind and will. You have the power to wield and shape your identity and the way you see yourself. Remember the quote, "This above all, to thy own self be true." Written in stone in the temples in Egypt, it says, "Man, know thyself." What really matters is how you see yourself, your self-discovery, and the continuous improvements you are making in your life. Because of a lost identity and assuming a false identity, we often struggle and war within ourselves and with others. Thank you for listening, eternal knowledge seekers, Sankofas, to this episode of Storytellers. See you next week as we continue our segment on society influences on identity. If you like this message, remember to subscribe, like, and share. This will greatly benefit the diaspora. This is Gary and Nana with Storytellers.